Look at your tomato plants right now. Go check them. See any fruit with a black sunken leathery patch on the bottom? That's not a disease, that's not a bug, and it's not something you did wrong. Today I'm going to show you how to turn kitchen trash, the stuff you toss in the compost bin without thinking twice, into a liquid that stops that black rot from spreading to your next round of fruit. Total cost? About $1, and I'm going to show you exactly how to make it. But first, I have to tell you something almost nobody explains correctly, because if you skip this part and just start dumping eggshells around your plants, you're going to be disappointed, not because the method doesn't work, because you'll be using it wrong, for the wrong reason, and you won't understand why it's failing. So let's talk about what's actually happening to your tomatoes. Here's what almost everyone believes. Blossom end rot means your soil doesn't have enough calcium. That's what half the gardening blogs on the internet will tell you, and it's wrong, almost every time. Most garden soil already has plenty of calcium sitting in it. The real problem isn't supply, it's delivery. Think of calcium like glue, actual structural glue. Every new cell your tomato grows needs a dose of that glue to hold its walls together. No glue, no strong walls. And the fastest growing part of the plant, the blossom end of a developing tomato, needs the most glue at exactly the moment it's least likely to get it. Here's why. Calcium doesn't move around inside a plant on its own. Once it lands somewhere, usually a big mature leaf, it's stuck there, permanently. The only way calcium travels through a tomato plant is by hitching a ride on water moving up through the stem. And that water flow, it's powered by one thing, leaves releasing moisture into the air. Big, broad leaves pull water and the calcium riding inside it toward themselves because they're doing all the sweating. Your tomato sitting quietly at the end of the vine? It barely pulls any water at all, so in a tug-of-war for calcium, the leaves win, almost every time, and the fruit loses. That's the entire problem. Not enough calcium in the ground, not enough calcium reaching the fruit before the cells collapse. Now here's where it gets interesting because I need to warn you about two things you've probably already tried. If you've ever tossed crushed raw eggshells straight into your planting hole thinking that solves it, I'm sorry to tell you, that eggshell can sit in the ground for years before it breaks down enough to release any calcium at all. It does basically nothing for the tomatoes you're growing this season, and if someone told you to add Epsom salt because it helps the plant use calcium better, that's not just wrong, it's actively working against you. Epsom salt is magnesium, not calcium, and magnesium competes with calcium for the same absorption pathway in the roots. Adding it can make blossom end rot worse, not better. So here's what actually works. This is the part where we turn eggshells into something the plant can actually use. Today, not in 3 years. The trick is a simple kitchen reaction, vinegar plus eggshell. Vinegar is a mild acid. Eggshell is solid calcium, locked in a crystal structure the plant can't absorb. When the acid touches that crystal, it breaks it apart and turns the calcium into a dissolved liquid form the plant can take up almost immediately. You'll actually see it happen. The moment vinegar hits crushed shell, it fizzes. Here's how to make it. Rinse out a batch of eggshells, peel out that thin membrane on the inside, leave it in and it'll rot and smell terrible while this sits. Crush the dried shells into small pieces, toast them in the oven, about half an hour until they turn a light tan color. This makes the calcium far more reactive. Drop the toasted shell into a mason jar, pour plain white vinegar over it, roughly a 10-to-1 ratio vinegar to shell. Cover the jar with a cloth. Not a sealed lid, the reaction releases gas, and a sealed jar can actually build pressure. Let it sit in a cool, dark spot for about a week to 10 days. You'll know it's ready when the bubbling stops. And here's the one detail that matters most. You want to still see a few undissolved shell pieces sitting at the bottom when you're done. That tells you there was more than enough calcium to fully neutralize the vinegar's acid, which means what's left in that jar is safe for your plants. Not something that'll burn them. Strain it, bottle it. You've got a liquid calcium concentrate that keeps for months. To use it, mix about 1.5 tablespoons into a gallon of water. Water it in at the base of your plants once a week, starting as soon as the first flowers open. Here's the timeline you should expect. This won't erase the rot already sitting on fruit that's already damaged. That fruit is done. No amount of calcium fixes tissue that's already collapsed. What it does do is protect the next wave. Give it 1 to 2 weeks from your first application before you'll see new fruit setting without that black patch forming. Compare that to what's sitting on the shelf at the garden center. A bottle of commercial calcium spray runs you somewhere around $10 to $25, and most of them ask you to use a lot more of it per gallon than this homemade version needs. You're making basically the same fix for the cost of vinegar you probably already own. Now, the part I promised you at the start, the honest part. Because I don't want you watching this, making a jar of eggshell calcium, and then coming back in 3 weeks annoyed that it didn't work. This liquid is support. It is not a fix for bad watering. And bad watering is the actual root cause behind most blossom end rot you'll ever see. If your soil dries out completely between waterings and then gets flooded, that water elevator I mentioned earlier stops running entirely, and it doesn't matter how much calcium you pour on. None of it can travel to the fruit if the water flow itself has stalled. The single biggest thing you can do isn't the eggshell jar, it's watering on a consistent schedule and adding 2 to 3 inches of mulch around your plants so the soil doesn't swing between bone dry and soaked. And one more thing nobody tells beginners, be careful hoeing or digging near the base of your plants. Tomato roots are shallow. If you slice through the fine root hairs while you're pulling weeds, you can trigger blossom end rot on a plant that was doing perfectly fine. No amount of calcium in the world fixes torn roots. So here's the real system. Consistent watering first, mulch second. This eggshell calcium as the backup layer, the thing that catches you when the weather doesn't cooperate. Use all three together and you'll barely see this problem again. If you're building a garden that actually produces, instead of fighting it every season, this is exactly what this channel is for. Every video connects to the next one. We covered watering basics 2 weeks ago. This is the calcium piece. And next week I'm covering the exact mulching method that keeps soil moisture steady all summer. Subscribe so you don't miss where this all connects. And tell me in the comments, is it the classic long Roma-style tomatoes giving you trouble or the round slicing varieties? I want to know what you're growing because it actually changes how likely you are to see this problem in the first place. See you in the next one.